Good morning, afternoon or evening, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update, and we have so much to get into in this market update. We're going to be talking about how another XRP filing has taken place. We're going to be going over the Crypto.com news. They received a Wells notice from the SEC as the SEC pursue their pointless tyrannical regime against the cryptocurrency industry. We're also going to be talking about how the US Supreme Court just turned down yesterday a case invoking the $4.4 billion in Silk Road Bitcoin. Now, my introduction actually into Bitcoin was during the days of Silk Road. I won't go into any detail in regards to that, but this is when I first heard about Bitcoin. And actually, Silk Road, I think, is an interesting part of Bitcoin's history that we kind of try and sweep under the rug because of obviously what it was. However, it was a great example of this kind of magic internet money, which was essentially how it was portrayed to me. So this now essentially clears the government to be able to sell the 69,370 Bitcoin that they currently have related to that. We'll, of course, look at the price chart. We're going to be talking, first of all, though, about the new contender for Satoshi Nakamoto. Of course, the HBO documentary came out yesterday, and they put Peter Todd as Bitcoin's creator. Now, unlike Len Susserman, who, of course, unfortunately killed himself, it's very interesting. A lot of these contenders for Satoshi Nakamoto all tend to not be alive anymore. We'll talk about our own thesis on who Satoshi perhaps was in just a second, but this is, of course, the argument that they're putting forward. But Peter Todd, unlike Len Susserman, is currently still alive, and actually he was tweeting pretty heavily on the back end of all of this, and we're going to be taking a look at this. Going into this, and this was actually reposted from Peter Todd himself, according to Forbes, HBO will say that Peter Todd is Satoshi. The Forbes article states that a 2010 Bitcoin talk post-reply to Satoshi that Cullen Habak believes was accidentally posted using Todd's profile. This is clearly ridiculous. It is just an example of Peter Todd replying to Satoshi with a snarky, pedantic, and accurate comment. Yes, an opt-out value will need to be reduced to generate the transaction fee. This is the kind of comment Peter could make today. There is zero reason to believe that he was Satoshi. This was actually posted by, or retweeted. BitMEX Research's reply was retweeted by Peter Todd himself, who's also saying that he's not Satoshi, like Len Susserman. Of course, the real Satoshi, wanting to be anonymous, would, of course, say this. So this is, of course, Peter Todd's reply. You intentionally write a double spend. You write it with same input and output, basically just criticizing it. Of course, this is the individual. Let's take a look at his Twitter, actually, just to show you who this guy is. Maybe give him a follow. Certainly would be worth following. He was certainly interacting with Bitcoin back in 2010. Craig Wright has also came out saying that the HBO documentary is bull something. I think Craig Wright is probably Satoshi, actually. Of course, that is a joke. I did tweet that on Twitter, and everyone took that rather seriously, unfortunately. Craig Wright is not Satoshi. He's actually lost cases in regards to his claims that he is. There was a good reply, actually, here. Peter Todd saying, the level of reaching here rivals QAnon stuff, which is pretty ironic if you know what Cullen's previous documentary was about. Exactly. The truth is pretty simple. There's hundreds, even thousands of people who could have created Bitcoin. We're not going to find Satoshi. I think this is deliberate. The fact that people can't actually... It's too good to be true, the whole story, guys. I just want to bring this up. This is, again, we've been highlighting over the past couple of days, a recent talk that BlackRock gave. This was one of the slides. Bitcoin through the lens of a global monetary alternative. BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, is now promoting Bitcoin. Now, if it was really a rival to the traditional financial systems, would the main beneficiary of those systems be promoting it? And some people say, okay, well, they're just hedging their bets. You don't hedge your bets with the competition. You don't bet on the other team, in my opinion. And I ultimately think that Bitcoin's introduction into us, and we're really not doing ourselves any favors by saying this, is here to essentially usher in a new global one world currency. And And I think the intent behind it, it's very interesting, the storytelling behind all these libertarians, Bitcoin, and I'm a libertarian myself, certainly from an economic point of view, don't seem to have an issue with what's going on with Bitcoin and the kind of corporatization of it. They don't really seem to care. They don't really, a lot of the principles that they fight for, they're actually cool with going against in order to make money. And it's the similarities to me between how the Federal Reserve Act came to be. You, of course, had the crisis that was caused by the likes of JP Morgan and all these others. You have the bank, you'd have heard of the Knickerbocker Bank, you'd have heard of Heinz Bank, and many of the others. And then essentially they came up with an Aldrich bill after Jekyll Island, which was the first bill where they said we want to centralize banking in the US. That got rejected because there was fears that Wall Street was too involved in it. And then the same people pushed through another bill called the Federal Reserve Act, which essentially saw the implementation of the Federal Reserve, claiming to give the power back to the people through government. And the same people went and worked for it. They control both sides of the spectrum. I think it's far too miraculous that this guy called Satoshi just popped up. Could be a woman, who we don't know who. Could be neither man or woman, certainly in this day and age. Careful, all in. It's very, I think, nonsensical to actually believe in the Satoshi narrative. I would like it to be true. I would love for Bitcoin and all the intent that's told is behind it to be the case. I just don't think it is. Just finished watching the HBO Satoshi documentary. This is a guy that's always on Bitcoin, by the way. That was one of the least compelling Satoshi identities I've ever seen. Early on in the documentary, around 11 minutes in, the narrator suggests that the identity of Satoshi should not be known because it would endanger his life. Then, ironically, he proceeds to recklessly accuse Peter Todd of being Satoshi without actually having proof. They interviewed Peter Todd, and Peter Todd was trolling Cullen the whole time. At one point, Peter says, I suspect a lot of them Bitcoiners will be very happy if you go this route, referring to Cullen accusing Peter of being Satoshi, because it's going to be yet another example of journalism really missing the point in a way that's very funny. Peter was right. The documentary is garbage and shameful. Interesting words, not mine. The strongest piece of evidence presented was a reply Todd made to Satoshi. Image attached with the documentary framing Peter Todd as accidentally continuing Satoshi's thoughts while logged in an alternative account. Believe it or not, this was their most compelling argument, and it was not compelling at all. It does not look like Peter is continuing Satoshi's thoughts. It just looks like he is correcting Satoshi, as Peter has done many times. Peter Todd, of course, to be specific, the input and output case can't match exactly. So him replying to Satoshi, essentially HBO are now saying that implements him as Satoshi. They're going to keep feeding you these Satoshis, I'm afraid, guys, just like they said it was Len Sussman, or Len Sussman was sort of highlighted. You're never going to find out the real identity behind Satoshi. What we will perhaps do is find out the intent behind it based on what the world looks like in the coming years. And there's no doubt about the fact that Bitcoin is going to play a vital role in it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the likes of BlackRock. Bitcoin has been allowed to succeed. I think when you look at people that have challenged the status quo, they've completely disrupted decimated entire regions on the back end of them trying to break free from the system. And Bitcoin just slips through the net, does it? I don't think so. And certainly, like I say, BlackRock promoting it is interesting. Let's get on to some more news, guys. We're going to leave that there. I've given my narrative. I want to know yours in the description. It's important to me to The Madness of Crowds is a great book by Charles something. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. And it talks about actually how, in some cases, the crowd can be right. There was an interesting study done, wasn't there, in regards to I think there was a jar with balls or jelly beans or something in it, and they make people essentially guess, and the medium actually turns out to be kind of correct, or certainly not far off it, which is interesting. So your opinions are always greatly cherished by me. This is from Eleanor. New Capital or Canary Capital has officially filed for an S1 with the SEC for an XRP ETF. Now, I don't think this is likely to get approved given the fact the SEC has appealed the Ripple case. It might. We're seeing encouraging signs of a more progressive regulatory environment coupled with growing demand from investors for sophisticated access to cryptocurrency beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum, especially investors seeking access to enterprise-grade blockchain solutions and their native tokens such as XRP, a spokesperson said. People think XRP is just this like meme, basically. It's not. We looked at a clip actually of the, it wasn't the WEF, IMF is who it was, essentially highlighting both Ripple and Stellar in regards to a new sort of payment system that is coming. There's just so many sort of breadcrumbs when it comes to XRP. Yesterday, Crypto.com received a Wells notice from the SEC. This is another one that bites the dust, along with OpenSea, which is an NFT platform that are claiming NFTs as securities now, pictures. And also, you've got the likes of Consensus, Robinhood. It's just a shame, really, isn't it? And it's great to see the crypto industry fighting back. I think with the election that's coming up, whoever wins, there's going to be reform in regards to this to appease the masses, potentially. Today, Crypto.com actually strikes back, filing against the SEC to protect the future of crypto in the US. Really glad to see this. This is, of course, from Chris, who is the CEO. We'd love to interview you, Chris, of Crypto.com. This unprecedented action by our company against the federal agency is a warranted response to the SEC's regulation by enforcement regime, which has hurt more than 50 million American crypto holders. Remember, the SEC is doing this in your name, by the way, and using your tax monies to fund them. And to use all regulatory tools available to bring certainty to the industry through proper rulemaking, Crypto.com has also filed a petition with the CFTC and CFTC to confirm crypto derivative product categorization. They've already came out and said actually they don't believe the cryptos themselves are securities, very interestingly, which gives the SEC no jurisdiction over them. While we welcome recent bipartisan support for the industry, that message has not been received by the current SEC leadership that issued us a Wells notice just hours prior. The SEC unauthorized overreach and unlawful rulemaking regarding crypto must stop. Recent ruling have made clear that crypto is not itself a security and thus it is not an investment contract simply because it changes hands. The Second Circuit has already, again, recent rulings, he's covered it. For this reason and many others, we continue to be very bullish on the US crypto markets and our immediate plans to expand our offerings to US customers. Fantastic. It's great to see us fight back as an industry. Yesterday was some interesting news. The US Supreme Court turns down case involving $4.4 billion in Silk Road Bitcoin. The US Supreme Court has ghosted a case, interesting terminology there, over the 69,370 Bitcoin, around 4.4 billion seized from Silk Road. Battleborn Investment tried to snag the rights through a bankruptcy hustle. Oh! It's kind of like Craig Wright claiming to be Satoshi. You know, I believe there was a court hearing that kind of threw that out. I don't know what rights they'd have had to this. I don't know. This is kind of a watery argument. Now with the Supreme Court stepping aside, the government's set to sell this massive stash. We all remember the German government dumping 50,000 Bitcoin. Rocketed the market early this summer. Rocked the market early this summer. And look at what the markets did in the context of 50,000 Bitcoin hitting the market. Are the US government going to sell? I don't know if they will. The largest, I believe, holder of Bitcoin. Of course, this is it. They're now free to sell. Are we going to see this? We shall see. $4.3 billion. Let's hope that they decide to sell when the $16 billion worth of FTX funds get released. Boring month so far. It's with the 9th of October. It's been really boring, but we ultimately still believe that we are heading in a broader direction. That is to the upside, and that things are yet to really get rocking and rolling. You're really yet to see an alt season, but we're seeing lots of positive signs in regards to the altcoin market. Dollar, we think the dollar's going to roll. We have got certainly a lot more technical confidence that's going to be the case. This is going to alleviate the environment for risk assets. Let's just see it actually take place. We'll see. This was interesting. We did say this was interesting. We did have a pattern that took us to the downside, but this sort of spooked us a little bit in regards to what was going. Not something I was sort of betting on. The only thing I am betting on is the GBP dollar and euro dollar gaining strength. That's really it from me, guys. Let's see how long this has gone on for. I hope you don't mind the rants at the start. It's important that we question this, because if the world that we're moving towards is one that's changing. Did a Patreon yesterday, guys. Get in the Patreon if you're not already. If you can afford it comfortably, it's £30 a month. Become a Patreon. I've got a meeting tonight. I did a meeting yesterday talking about the kind of global reset and why people may have got it wrong in regards to looking at debt as an issue. It is an issue. It's very logical to expect it to be one. But in regards to the rant that we kind of made at the start, or putting our opinion forward on Bitcoin, I want people to be very careful. A new financial system is being ushered in. It may be the old one, just modified with the likes of distributed ledgers. And I ultimately think what they want is a one world currency system, and Bitcoin maybe have been introduced to us to get us on that ideal. I would love nothing more than for my own personal sake, for the Satoshi, and for the world's sake, for the Satoshi story to be true, and this truly amazing man, woman, group, essentially introduced this magical money to us that was going to liberate us. I just don't happen to think that's the case. I unfortunately, I'm kind of a glass half full kind of person in general. I always sort of look at the worst scenario, and anything better than that is a bonus. Maybe that's sad. I don't know. But we shall see. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section. I am going to love and leave you on that note, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you in tomorrow's Daily Market Update.